The wind was screaming across the frozen land. Snow and ice moved like knives in the air. The sky was dark and the ground shook with the power of the storm. It was not a normal storm. It was the kind that killed without mercy. On this alien planet, storms like this came without warning. The people who lived here learned to hide, to stay inside, to never risk their lives outside. But tonight was different. An alien mother was running through the storm, her arms holding her small child close to her chest. Her eyes were full of fear, and her steps were heavy in the deep snow. The child was weak, his body shaking, his breath almost gone. The mother cried, but her tears turned into ice on her face. Her heart was breaking, but she did not stop. She could not stop. If she stopped, her child would die. The storm grew stronger with every second. The wind pushed her back, the snow blinded her eyes. Her legs were tired, her arms were weak, but she kept going. No one came to help her. She had shouted earlier, hoping someone would hear, but everyone had already closed their doors. No one wanted to fight the storm. No one wanted to risk their life for her or her child. In her heart, she felt the truth she always knew. Her people cared for themselves, not for others. They lived in fear, they lived in silence, and now her child would pay the price. The mother screamed into the storm, but her voice was lost in the wind. She fell to her knees, her body almost frozen. She thought it was the end. She thought she would watch her child die in her arms. Then something happened. A shape appeared through the white curtain of snow. At first, she thought her eyes were lying. Maybe it was only the shadow of a rock or a ghost born from the storm. But no, the shadow moved. The shadow walked. It was tall, strong, and it was coming closer. The mother's heart stopped. She had heard the stories of strange beings, visitors from the stars. Some said they were demons. Others said they were hunters. She had never seen one with her own eyes, but she knew the shape was not one of her people. It was something different, something unknown. The figure came closer, step by step. The storm pushed against it, but it kept moving forward. Its body was wrapped in thick clothes, strange materials that shined under the flashes of lightning. Its face was hidden, but two bright eyes glowed behind a shield of glass. The mother froze in fear. She held her child tighter. Her mind shouted, "Run!" but her body could not move. The figure stopped in front of her. For a moment, there was silence between them. Only the wind howled around them. The mother thought the figure would turn away. She thought it would leave her and her child to die. That was what her own people would have done. But then, something happened that she never expected. The figure knelt down in the snow. Its hands reached out, slow and careful. The mother pulled back, afraid. But the figure did not attack. Instead, it pointed to the child. Its voice came through the storm, strong and clear. "Give me the child," it said. The mother's heart was racing. She wanted to say no. She wanted to protect her child, but her arms were weak, and her child was dying. She looked into those strange, glowing eyes, and for the first time, she saw something she never thought possible. She saw compassion. The figure lifted the child with care. The mother expected the storm to crush them both, but the figure stood tall, shielding the child with its own body. Step by step, it began to move. It did not run. It did not hide. It carried the child as if it was its own. The mother followed, too shocked to speak, too cold to think. All she knew was that something impossible was happening. Someone was helping her. Someone who was not even from her world. The storm roared louder. The snow fell harder, but the figure kept moving. Its strength seemed endless, its will unbroken. The mother stumbled after it. Every step was pain. Every breath was fire in her chest. But hope had returned to her heart, a small light in the darkness. She did not know who this strange being was. She did not know why it chose to help. But in that moment, she knew one thing. Her child might live, because of this stranger, because of this human. The cave was still far away, the night was still long, and the storm was still deadly. But the first spark of hope had been born, a hope that would change her life, and maybe her whole world, forever. The storm was still wild, but inside that endless white chaos, something strange was happening. The human carried the small alien child in his arms, holding him close against his chest. Every step was heavy, every breath filled with freezing air, yet he did not stop. The mother stumbled behind him, her eyes wide with shock, her heart caught between fear and hope. She had never seen such strength, not from her own people, not from anyone. The storm pushed against him like a monster made of ice and wind, but he pushed back. Snow hit his body, sharp as knives, but he shielded the child with his arms. The human walked forward as if his only purpose in the universe was to save this one life. The mother's mind was confused, her world was collapsing inside her thoughts. Her people always told stories of humans. They called them destroyers, warriors, and invaders. They were described as selfish and cruel, caring only for power. But what she was seeing now was the opposite. This human was not destroying, he was protecting. He was risking his own life for someone he did not even know. The child's breathing was weak, his skin pale and cold. The mother felt fear growing inside her again. Would the child survive and take in? Oh, they reached shelter. Would the storm steal him before the human could save him? She wanted to scream, she wanted to run faster, but her body was too weak. All she could do was follow the figure ahead of her. Her hope rested in the hands of this strange being. The human finally reached a wall of frozen stone. Hidden between the sharp rocks was the entrance of a cave. He pushed through the snow, stepping inside the darkness. The mother followed, her legs shaking, her chest burning from the cold. The cave was small, but it was safe from the storm. The sound of the wind outside turned into a low growl. Inside was silence, a silence filled with fear and questions. The human laid the child gently on the ground. He opened a pack from his back, filled with strange tools and objects. The mother had never seen such things before. He pulled out a small device, pressed a button, and fire appeared. Not wildfire like she knew, but controlled flames burning inside a metal ring. Warmth spread into the air, pushing back the cold. The child's body slowly began to respond, his chest rising with stronger breaths. The mother gasped, her eyes full of disbelief. Her people never had such devices. They feared fire, but this human controlled it like a servant. The warmth filled the cave, bringing life back to her child. She knelt beside him, tears freezing on her face, but her heart warming for the first time in years. She whispered, "He is alive." Though her voice trembled with doubt and hope mixed together, the human did not speak much. He checked the child's pulse, wrapped him in thermal cloth, and gave him water from a metal bottle. His movements were steady, calm, and full of care. The mother stared at him, wondering, "Why is he helping me?" she asked at last, her voice soft but heavy with fear. "Why do you save him, stranger? He is not your kind, he is not your blood." The human looked at her through his glass shield. His eyes were tired, but they carried something powerful, compassion. He spoke slowly, his words cutting through the silence like fire through ice. "No child deserves to die in the cold." His voice was firm, filled with truth that needed no explanation. The mother lowered her head. She felt something heavy in her chest, a weight of shame. Her own people would have walked away. They would have said, "The storm is stronger. The child is weak. Let him die." But this human, who owed her nothing, was doing everything. She whispered again, almost to herself, "You are not like the stories. You are not like what they told us." The child stirred in his sleep, his small hand reaching out. The human gently held it for a moment, letting warmth pass from his glove into that tiny frozen palm. The mother watched, unable to look away. For the first time, she wondered if her people had been wrong about humans all along. Outside, the storm roared, the ice cracked, the wind screamed. But inside the cave was a fire, a fragile light in the endless darkness. The human sat close to the flames, his body tired, his breath slow, yet his eyes stayed sharp, watching over the child like a guardian. The mother sat across from him, hugging her knees, her mind racing. She thought about her people, their fear, their weakness. She thought about the human, his courage, his compassion. And for the first time, she felt something she had never felt before. She felt safe in the presence of another being, not because of his power, but because of his kindness. The child coughed lightly, then settled into steady sleep. The mother let out a long breath, her heart calming. She looked at the human again. She wanted to thank him, but her words felt too small. Her world had changed in a single night, because a stranger had carried her child through death and fire, because a human had chosen compassion over fear. The storm was not finished, danger was not over, but a bond had been and formed, a fragile thread of trust, and that bond would lead them into something much greater than either of them could imagine. The cave was quiet, but the silence was heavy with questions. The storm outside still screamed like a beast, but here inside, there was warmth. The small fire burned low, sending orange light over the walls of stone. The alien mother sat close to her child, holding him as if she would never let go again. The human sat nearby, his face hidden behind his glass shield, his body wrapped in strange armor. The mother looked at him, her heart full of confusion, fear, and something new she could not name. Her child breathed slowly, each breath stronger than the last. Color returned to his skin, his small hands moved, his lips trembled but no longer froze. The mother's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not from despair. She whispered, "He will live," though she still feared the storm might change its mind. She turned to the human and stared at him for a long time. He did not speak. He only fed the fire and checked the cloth wrapped around the child. Every movement was careful, full of patience, full of care. The mother could not understand. Her people taught her that survival was cold, that no one should risk for another. Compassion was weakness. Mercy was danger. Yet here was this human, a stranger from another world, showing compassion she had never seen. She wondered what kind of heart lived inside that strange armored chest, and why such a heart would choose to save her child. The human finally spoke, his voice calm and low. "Your child is strong. He will survive if we keep him warm." The mother nodded, her throat too tight for words. She wanted to ask him why he cared, why he risked, why he helped, but she could not find the courage. Her people would have left her to die, but this human had carried hope into the storm. The cave smelled of smoke and wet stone. Shadows danced on the walls, shaping strange figures that looked like spirits of old stories. The mother remembered those stories, the ones about humans. They were told to children to keep them afraid. Humans were described as monsters, hunters, thieves of worlds. But this one was sitting in front of her child, guarding him like a father. The stories suddenly felt hollow, like broken glass with no edge. The child stirred and opened his eyes, weak but alive. His small voice whispered, "Mother." The mother broke into sobs, hugging him close. Her tears fell on his face, but they were warm now, not frozen. The human watched quietly, his eyes soft behind the glass. He did not smile, but there was something in his silence that spoke louder than words. The mother whispered to her child, "You are safe because of him." The child turned his eyes to the human, his gaze curious, not afraid. He reached out a small hand, and the human gently touched it. In that moment, the mother felt her fear break. For the first time, she saw not a stranger, not an enemy, but a protector. Something inside her heart shifted. A seed of trust began to grow. Time passed slowly in the cave. The storm outside roared through the night, but the fire held back the cold. The human checked his tools, small glowing devices and folded metal parts. The mother had never seen such things. They looked like magic. One tool hummed and spread more heat into the cave, making the walls sweat with melted frost. The mother stared, amazed. She realized the human was not only strong but also clever. He carried knowledge her people did not understand, knowledge that could change everything if they ever learned it. The child fell asleep again, breathing steady. The mother whispered softly, "Thank you." The words felt weak compared to the gift he had given her, but the human nodded. As if no more words were needed, he sat still, his eyes watching the entrance of the cave. He was not only a rescuer, he was a guard, a shield against the storm. The mother felt warmth on her skin, not just from the fire, but from hope. She had lived her whole life believing compassion was a dream, yet now compassion was alive in front of her, sitting by the fire. She thought of her people, hiding in fear, shutting doors, closing hearts. If they could see this human, would they believe as she now believed? Would they open their eyes, or would they close them tighter, afraid of the truth? The storm began to change, its voice growing softer. Snow still fell, but the angry wind slowed. The cave was no longer just shelter from the storm. It had become something more. It had become a place where old beliefs died, and new truths were born. The mother leaned against the wall, exhausted, but comforted. Her child slept peacefully, warmed by the fire and the human's protection. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe in tomorrow. She whispered into the quiet air, words that even surprised her. "Maybe humans are not monsters. Maybe humans are hope." The human did not answer, but his eyes lifted to meet hers, and in that silence, she knew he had heard. She knew he understood, and she knew her world would never be the same again. The fire burned low, its glow painting the walls with soft orange light. The storm outside had begun to fade, though its echo still howled through the cracks of the cave. The mother sat with her child in her arms, watching the flames rise and fall. The human sat across from her, silent, his helmet resting against the stone, his body heavy with exhaustion. The air was quiet, but the quiet was not empty. It was full of questions. The mother could no longer keep her thoughts inside. She spoke, her voice low and careful. "You saved him, yea?" "Oh, save me, but I do not understand why." Her words trembled as if she feared the answer. The human lifted his head, his glowing eyes meeting hers. For a moment he said nothing, only the sound of the fire filled the space between them. Then slowly, his voice broke the silence. "I saved him because I could not let another child die." The mother frowned, confusion deep in her eyes. "You do not know us. We are not your kind. Why would you care?" The human's gaze softened, though his face was hidden behind glass and steel. He spoke with a tone heavy with memory. "Because once, I had a family, and I could not save them." The cave seemed to grow colder, though the fire was still warm. The mother leaned closer, her heart tightening at his words. The human's voice was steady, but there was pain behind it. My home was Earth, a world full of storms too, but different, storms of wind and water. One night, a storm came stronger than any before. I tried to save them, my wife, my daughter, but the flood was faster, the water was merciless. He paused, the silence heavy. I lost them. I lost everything. The mother lowered her eyes, her chest aching with a pain that was not her own. She had lost people too, friends, family, swallowed by storms. But his pain was different, deeper, because he carried it alone, far from his home. The human continued, his words quiet but sharp. Since that day, I swore no child would die in front of me if I could stop it. No mother would cry alone if I had the strength to help. It does not matter if you are human or not, life is life, and it must be protected. The mother's eyes filled with tears she could not hold back. Her people never spoke of such things. Compassion was not part of their language, but this human spoke it like truth. She whispered, "Your pain became your strength." He nodded slowly, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "Yes, pain taught me compassion, loss taught me duty, and now it is the only way I live." The mother felt her heart break open in a way she had never known. Her whole life she had believed kindness was weakness, but here was proof that kindness was strength, the kind of strength that could survive even the cruelest storm. She looked at her child, breathing steady in her arms. He was alive because this man had chosen compassion over fear. She whispered again, "You are not what they told us, you are something else." The human looked at her, his eyes tired but steady. "What do they tell you about us?" he asked. The mother hesitated, her voice shaking. "They call you monsters, destroyers. They say you come to take, not to give. They tell us to fear you, to hide from you, to never trust you." Her words felt smaller the longer she spoke, as if the truth of her people's stories could not stand against the truth of her eyes. The human did not grow angry. He did not defend himself with pride. He only said, "Maybe some humans are like that, but not all. We are many, and we are different, but compassion is what makes us human." The words struck her like a flame in the dark. She wondered if her people had been blind all along, if they had let fear blind them from seeing the truth. The cave grew silent again, the fire snapping softly. The mother hugged her child tighter, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. She looked at the human and saw not a monster, not a stranger, but something she had never seen before. She saw a heart that carried both pain and kindness, a heart strong enough to fight storms and still protect life. The storm outside finally began to break. The wind calmed, the snow fell gently, no longer sharp and cruel. The mother closed her eyes, her body heavy with exhaustion. But inside her chest, hope burned brighter than the fire. She knew the path ahead would be dangerous, but she also knew that this human had given her more than rescue. He had given her a new way to see the world. Before sleep took her, she whispered into the night, "Maybe compassion is stronger than fear. Maybe your past will change my people's future." The human said nothing, but his silence carried agreement, and in that quiet cave, surrounded by fading storm, a fragile bond grew stronger, a bond born from loss, from kindness, from the past of one human who refused to let another child be lost. The cave was calm, but the calm was thin, like glass ready to break. The mother held her child close, the fire warmed them, and the human sat guard near the entrance. For a short time, it almost felt safe, almost felt like hope could survive. But outside, the storm was not the only danger. Something else was moving in the ice, something older, hungrier, and far less merciful. The human's eyes stayed sharp, scanning the shadows at the mouth of the cave. He felt it before he heard it, a vibration through the frozen ground. The storm had masked the sound, but now that the wind was quieting, another noise could be heard. A low growl, deep and cold, rolling across the snow. The mother froze, her ears catching the sound, her blood turning to ice. She knew that sound. Every child of her world knew it. It was the cry of the ice predators, hunters born from the storm itself. The human stood, his body tense. The mother whispered, her voice shaking, "They have come. They smell him. They smell my child." Her arms clutched the boy tighter, fear flooding her heart. These beasts did not fear storms. They lived inside them, thrived in them. They hunted the weak. They followed the sound of breath, the heat of life. Now they had found the cave, and they would not leave until they fed. The first shadow slid across the entrance, a long, lean body with white scales and glowing eyes. Its teeth shimmered like frozen glass, sharp enough to cut through stone. The creature hissed, its breath a cloud of ice. Behind it came another and another, their bodies twisting like serpents in the snow. The mother shook with terror. Her people never fought these things, they only hid. But there was nowhere to run now, nowhere to hide. The human stepped forward, placing himself between the predators and the family. His hand went to his side, pulling out a strange weapon. It hummed with light, glowing blue against the dark cave. The mother gasped. She had never seen such a weapon. The predators hissed louder, circling the cave mouth, their eyes fixed on the child. The air filled with tension. The storm outside had become a silent witness. The child stirred in his mother's arms, whimpering softly. The sound drew the beasts closer, their claws scraping against the stone. The mother felt despair rise inside her. She whispered, "We cannot win. They are too many." But the human did not move back. His voice was steady. "Then we will fight, and we will not let them take him." The first predator leapt, its body moving faster than sight. The human swung his weapon, a burst of blue light cutting the air. The creature screamed as the strike hit, its body crashing into the snow. But two more followed, their jaws snapping, their claws reaching for the child. The mother screamed, curling around her son. But again, the human moved, his body like a shield of steel. He pushed one beast back with his arms, striking the other with a surge of light. The cave shook with the force of the battle. The predators clawed and hissed. The human fought with fire and strength. The mother could only watch, her heart torn between fear and awe. This man, this stranger, was fighting not for himself but for her child. Each strike he made was filled with fury and with mercy. Mercy not for the beasts, but for the life he was protecting. Blood stained the snow outside, dark against the white. Two predators lay still, their bodies broken, but more shadows moved in the storm, their glowing eyes watching, waiting. The mother whispered, "They will not stop. They never stop." The human's chest rose with heavy breaths, but his voice was firm. "Then I will not stop either." The beasts circled again, their hunger stronger than fear. The mother thought of her people, how they would never believe what she was seeing. No one of her kind would stand against such creatures, no one would fight for another. Yet this human stood, bleeding, tired, but unbroken. She realized something deep in her soul. He was not only saving her child, he was saving her faith in life itself. The largest predator stepped forward, its body towering, its mouth opening wide. The human tightened his grip on the weapon, his eyes never leaving the beast. The mother held her breath, the child whimpered softly. And then the storm itself seemed to pause, as if the world waited to see the outcome. The predator roared and charged. The human met it head-on, his body colliding with the force of the beast. Light flashed, snow exploded, the cave shook. The battle was chaos, but inside the chaos was something clear. The human would not let them pass. He would not let them win. The mother cried out, "Be careful!" Though her voice was lost in the roar, she pressed her child close, whispering prayers she had never believed in, and for the first time in her life, she believed in something stronger than fear. She believed in the courage of one human. Outside, the predators howled. Inside the cave, the fire burned brighter. The night was not yet won. The danger was not yet over. But in that moment, as the human stood against the storm and the beasts, the mother knew the story would not end with death. It would end with something greater. It would end with the truth that compassion could fight even the darkest predators of the world. The cave was shaking with the force of the struggle. Snow fell from the ceiling in small showers, dusting the fire and making the shadows dance. The human stood at the mouth of the cave, his weapon glowing blue against the dark storm. Before him, the great predator lunged again, its body slamming into the stone, its jaws snapping like blades. The mother screamed, clutching her child close, her eyes wide with terror. But the human did not retreat. He planted his feet in the snow, and he fought. The predator struck with claws that could tear through bone. The human blocked with his arm guard, sparks flying as steel met ice. The weapon in his hand sang with energy, every strike echoing like thunder. The beast howled, its voice so loud that even the storm seemed silent for a moment. But the human's voice cut through, not with words, but with will. He would not fall. Not here, not while life was depending on him. The other predators circled, their glowing eyes waiting for weakness. The mother saw them move, their bodies low, their hunger sharp. Her heart pounded. She whispered prayers she never believed. The child stirred in her arms, too weak to cry, but his small breath gave her courage. She looked again at the human. He was fighting not like a soldier for himself, but like a guardian for her child. The largest predator lunged again, its teeth snapping close to his neck. The human rolled, his boots digging into the snow, his weapon cutting across its chest. Blue light burned against white scales. The smell of scorched ice filled the air. The beast screamed, thrashing in pain, snow exploding with every strike. The cave trembled as if the mountain itself was watching. But the human kept moving, fast, precise, unbroken. The The mother gasped, her eyes wide with awe. Her people always said humans were violent, destroyers, but this was not destruction. This was sacrifice. This was protection. Every swing of his weapon, every block of his arm was not for himself. It was for her child, and that truth filled her heart with something new, something stronger than fear. The smaller predators darted forward, snapping at the firelight. The humans spun, striking one across the head, sending it crashing into stone. Another leapt, but he caught it midair, slamming it to the ground with force. The beasts howled, their voices mixing with the wind. Snow blew into the cave, blinding, choking, yet the human silhouette never wavered. He was a wall against the darkness, a fire against the storm. The battle felt endless, every second stretching into forever. The mother wanted to help, but her arms were weak, her child was fragile. All she could do was whisper, "Please survive, please save us." The human seemed to hear her even through the roar. His strikes grew stronger, his will sharper. He fought with a strength that came not from his body, but from his heart. Finally, the largest predator staggered, its body bleeding from glowing wounds. It roared, shaking the cave, but its strength was failing. The human pressed forward, every strike pushing it back. Step by step, he forced the monster into the snowstorm outside. The smaller predators hissed, their courage breaking, their bodies retreating into the storm. The battle was turning, the tide shifting. With one final strike, the human drove his weapon deep. The great beast howled one last time, its voice echoing across the frozen land. Then it fell, its body heavy, crashing into the snow like a mountain. The ground shook, the cave trembled, the storm carried the sound away, and then silence. Only the wind remained, whispering across the ice. The Mothi stared, her breath caught in her chest. She had seen something impossible, something her people would never believe. One human had fought the monsters of the storm and lived. One human had stood against death and won. Her child was alive. She was alive because of him. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear, but of gratitude so deep she could not speak. The human returned, his body tired, his breath heavy. Blood streaked his armor, his weapon dimmed, but his eyes still glowed with fire, not of rage but of compassion. He looked at the mother, then at the child, and without words he made it clear, he had not fought for victory, he had fought for them. The mother rose slowly, her knees weak, her arms shaking. She whispered, "You are more than the stories, you are more than we were told." Her voice cracked, but her truth was strong. "You fight not for yourself, but for others, you are hope." The human said nothing, but his silence was louder than words. The fire in his eyes told her everything. The cave was calm again. The storm outside fading. The predators were gone. The danger had passed. But inside the mother's heart, a battle had ended too. The battle between fear and trust, between lies and truth. And the truth had won. She no longer saw him as a monster. She saw him as something her people had forgotten existed. A protector, a savior, a friend. The child stirred, opening his eyes, whispering softly, "Mother." The mother held him close, tears falling on his face. She looked again at the human, her voice steady now. "You saved us, not once, but again, and I will never forget." The fire burned low, the cave warm, and though the storm outside had nearly ended them, inside, something greater had been born. A bond forged in battle, a bond stronger than ice, a bond that would change everything. The storm had ended, the wind had grown tired, and the sky above the frozen land was turning pale with the first light of dawn. The snow no longer screamed in the air, it now lay soft and still like a blanket covering the wounds of the night. The cave was quiet except for the soft crackle of the fire, a fragile flame still holding on. The human sat near the entrance, his body leaning against the stone, his breath heavy but steady. The mother sat across from him, her child safe in her arms, sleeping at last without fear. For a long time, no one spoke. The silence itself was sacred. The mother kept staring at the human, at his tired face behind the cracked glass of his helmet. He had bled for them. He had fought for them. He had risked everything. And now he sat there, not demanding thanks, not asking for reward, but simply watching the horizon, as if his only purpose was to make sure the world stayed safe until the sun rose. The mother's heart was heavy with feelings she had never known. Her people did not speak of gratitude, they did not speak of trust, but she felt both, burning inside her stronger than the fire. She whispered, almost afraid of the sound of her own words, "You should not have survived. No one could have survived. Yet you did, and you saved us." The human turned his head slightly, his eyes soft but tired. He answered simply, "Because life is worth saving." The words struck her deeper than any weapon. She looked down at her child, alive, breathing, safe. And she knew those words were true, not just for humans, but for all beings. Life was worth saving, and this one human had proven it. The child stirred, his small eyes blinking open. He looked at his mother first, then at the human. There was no fear in his eyes, only curiosity, only warmth. His small hand reached out, and once more the human took it gently in his glove. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She had never seen such innocence met with such kindness. In that moment, she realized the truth. Her child would grow up with this memory, and it would shape him, it would shape her, it would shape their people if they allowed it. The dawn grew brighter, painting the ice with shades of silver and gold. The predators were gone, their tracks leading away into the endless snow. The storm had left the land broken, but the silence after the storm felt like a promise that not all was lost, that survival had meaning beyond fear. The mother stood slowly, still holding her child close. She walked to the human, her voice unsteady but filled with strength. "I will tell them," she said. "I will tell my people what I have seen. I will tell them who you are." The human tilted his head, his expression unreadable behind the glass, but his silence gave her courage to continue. "They call your kind destroyers, monsters, thieves, but I have seen the truth. You are not monsters, you are not destroyers, you are hope. And if my people do not believe me, then I will tell them again and again until they listen." Her voice grew louder, stronger with every word, because they must know that compassion is not weakness, compassion is strength, and it is the strength that saved us. The human looked at her for a long moment, then finally he spoke, his voice low but clear. "Do not tell them about me. Tell them about what you saw. Tell them about compassion itself. Humans are not perfect, but the lesson is not who I am. The lesson is what kindness can be." The mother bowed her head, her heart burning with respect. She understood. It was not just about him. It was about the truth that had been hidden by fear for generations. The child spoke softly, his voice fragile but bright. "Mother, he is not a monster. He is a friend." The mother broke into tears, hugging her child tightly. She looked at the human through blurred eyes, her voice trembling. "Yes, he is our friend, and more than that, he is proof that the stories were wrong." The sun climbed higher, the world outside glowing with light. The storm had tried to end them, the predators had tried to take them, but they had survived, not because of fear, not because of hiding, but because of compassion. The mother knew this story would spread, not as a warning, but as a legend. The legend of the human who stood against the storm, the human who fought the beasts, the human who saved a child not his own, and in doing so saved something greater. The human rose slowly, his body heavy with fatigue, but his steps still strong. He looked once more at the horizon, then back at the mother and child. He did not speak, but he did not need to. His silence carried the truth. His actions had already spoken louder than any words. The mother whispered one last time, her voice soft but certain. "My heart has changed. My people will change because of you." The fire in the cave dimmed, the snow outside glowed with light, and the story of the night would not fade. It would grow. It would spread. It would live on, carried by the memory of a mother, a child, and a stranger who became more than a stranger. He became the symbol of compassion, the proof that even in the coldest storm, warmth could be found.